All right, appreciate everyone for joining us for Coach Franklin's weekly press conference. We'll start with an opening statement from Coach, and then we'll take questions from Zoom. Coach?
Good seeing everybody. I appreciate everybody coming out to cover Penn State football. Just some notes. Another awesome environment, 110,830, second largest crowd in Beaver Stadium history. We won the turnover battle, the explosive play battle, the third down, not the explosive play battle, the third down battle, the sack battle. We did not win the drive start battle. I think their punter is exceptional. And we did not win the penalty battle. Didn't have a lot, but still did not win that battle. Had the same number of penalties, but we had more yards. We talk about players of the game. We went with the offensive line, the group that we consider the starters, which is Olu, Hunter, Caden, Sal, JB, Vega, and Drew. We kind of view those two guys as starters as well. Defensively, Chop Robinson, special teams, Dom DeLuca. Dom just continues to make plays and show up. He's been disruptive now 3 weeks in a row in terms of being involved in turnovers. D-squad players of the week on offense, Golden, which is also his birthday. Happy birthday, Golden. London Montgomery, and then on defense, Lamont Payne and Jamel Lyons. And then on special teams, Jace Tutty, who's been really good for us. He's been a really good teammate since he's arrived here and is bringing value and is appreciated by our coaching staff in the locker room. Some positives from the game. We won 1-0, shutout, but what we've been kind of preaching is we got better. I thought we got better last week. I thought the three biggest plays of the game was the fumble caused by a combination of Denai and Jalen. Jalen on the hit, Denai punched it out, recovered by Curtis. If you really look at that game started out the way Iowa wanted it to go. They had the ball. They were able to get at least a first down. They were able to punt us deep, play field position, pin us deep. Then we didn't do a good job in that coming out drive. Then we punt the ball back deep to them. So that turnover was huge in the game, huge, because that game started really the way Iowa wanted it to go. That's their style of game. But that was a huge play. I thought the 4th and 1 from the minus 48-yard line in the beginning of the game was the second biggest play of the game. And then the punt, the rugby-style punt that hit their guy in the head, and we got a turnover there. I thought they were the three biggest plays in the game that really got it going. Kind of an amazing stat. Audrey, please double-check this. But pretty amazing stat. After the shovel pass for the fumble that we just talked about, Penn State ran 80 of the next 96 plays in the game. There was 96 more plays in that game after the fumble, and 80 of them we ran, which is amazing. Of those 16 plays that they ran, went for negative 5 yards. I thought our preparation was excellent, and it translated to the game. We got to continue to build on that, our process individually and collectively of preparing each week. I think our D squads have been excellent. Those guys have been excellent in giving us the looks for our opponents, and I know the team really showed an appreciation for them on Sunday. We are leading the nation in time of possession, in turnover margin, in total defense, and in pass defense, so pretty cool. We're not a big stat team, but I do think the stats sometimes tell a story and kind of reinforce some things that you're doing right, and allow you to, also kind of look into some things that you need to do better. Opportunities for growth, opening drive on both offense and defense. And then just continuing to refine our collective and individual preparation. Kind of getting into Northwestern and David Braun. David is serving not only as the head coach, but also the defensive coordinator and doing a nice job. He's got a really good reputation and a really good resume and doing a nice job. When you talk about Mike Bajakian, who's a guy that we've known of for a long time, actually Coach Leonard and him worked together at Boston College, but he's been a coordinator for a long time. Coached in the NFL, is very well thought of and is doing a nice job there. They're a no-huddle offense that really they can run tempo, but they're more kind of the illusion of tempo so they can see how you line up and then get to the plays they want to run. They base mainly out of 11 personnel. They want to throw the ball. I think that's where they feel like they have the best chance to be successful, and I do think Ben Bryan, their quarterback, is probably the best pure thrower that we've seen this year. I think he's a 4-time transfer, which is strange. Cincinnati, Eastern Michigan, then back to Cincinnati, and now Northwestern. Also impressed with A.J. Henning, and then obviously their wide receiver number 17, Bryce Kurtz. That game last week was really interesting to watch the coaches' tape as well as the TV copies, which I like to watch as well. I think it was 31-10 in the fourth quarter, and when you think about how Minnesota likes to play, you would never say that they would win that game based on Minnesota's style of play. But they found a way. Which was impressive to watch. Like I mentioned, David Braun is also the defensive coordinator. They're generally a 4-down, mixed coverage, quarters-based team, doing a nice job. Linebacker number 34, Xander Mueller, linebacker number 32, Bryce Gallagher, and then their Sam/safety, however you want to look at him, number 24, Rod Hurd. They're guys that kind of jump out to us. And then on special teams, Jeff Jenick, who I've known for a long time. Jeff is a respected long-term special teams coordinator, as well as was the head coach at Eastern Michigan. I'm not sure if I've told you this story or not, but if I have, I apologize. But I want to say maybe I was at James Madison at the time. This was for the Daily Collegian group that's here. You won't remember these days, but this was pre-cell phone. And I remember it was out recruiting I think in the spring. And that was a nightmare, like when you didn't have a cell phone. You didn't know it was a nightmare at the time, but now looking back at it, it was a nightmare. Didn't have a cell phone. So you'd pull over side of the road, your big recruiting book, and you'd kind of swipe through it, and you get the pay phone, drop the quarters in there, and you're trying to call the high school coach. And you have to do that for every school, let them know you're coming. Well, Jeff had a cell phone. And we were kind of in the same recruiting areas, and that was like gold. So I remember I just kind of followed him for the day. I just kind of went to the same schools he did. He called the coaches, let them all know that we were coming. So I'm still appreciative of this to this day of Jeff. But Jeff's a very well thought of special teams coordinator. He's done a nice job. Was the previous head coach at Eastern Michigan. And then they got A.J. Henning, who's a transfer from Michigan, who's done a nice job in the return game for them as well. So open up to questions.
All right, we'll go to Donnie Collins and then Rich Garcella. You're on deck.
How you doing today, James?
Hey, Donnie.
I was wondering if you could assess the play of your wideouts the first 4 games. Are there areas where they've exceeded your expectations coming out of camp, and where do you see as the biggest areas of improvement there?
Yeah, I've been pleased with the group. I think we need to be more consistent as a total group. Some guys maybe more than others. I think Keandre has shown what he can do. Getting Trey back last week, although I wouldn't even say he was necessarily 100%, but he was cleared and good to go. That was big for us as well. And then we got a group of guys like we've talked about that have shown flashes at times and are doing some good things, but we need that to continue to grow. And there's, like we've talked about, I think still probably the same. We got about 5 guys that we think can play and have shown some good things in games and in practice, but we just need to be more consistent. So overall good, but we got to keep growing and getting better in that area.
Let's go to Rich Garcella, then Mike Gross. You're on deck.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm right
Are
here.
you, Rich, are you a coffee guy?
I'm a big coffee guy.
Black or like ice cream sundae?
Black.
I'm an ice
A
cream.
little bit of cream.
Yeah, I'm an ice cream sundae guy, but I've been doing this fasting. I drink it black, and just like you shake your head about the ice cream sundae, I shake my head about the black. I hate the black. It's like punishment. That's what I got right now. It's like
Love
punishment.
black coffee. If
Really?
it's good coffee.
You always
yeah.
loved it, or you've grown to love it?
As I've matured, I've grown to love it.
You calling me immature?
No, I'm calling myself mature instead of another adjective.
Gotcha.
Older.
Gotcha.
Okay. Hey, when you have a team this deep and the talent margin between the first and second teams can be so thin, how do you handle unhappy players that might come with it? And does the competition at each position, does that prevent complacency?
Well, a couple things. I think the running back position is a good example of kind of what we're talking about. You know, we really look at probably our two deep as starters. And we've really tried to kind of sell everybody on the fact that we are sharing the reps, which is going to help us in the fourth quarter. Sharing the reps, which is going to help us in a long season, hopefully a very long season. You look at us, I think defensively, I think to this point of the year, I think we have 86 less reps than we had last year at this same point of the season on the defensive side of the ball. And then obviously we've had some games where we've been able to get guys out. So I think guys have just embraced and understood. Oh, and then also, probably 6 less plays a game on each side of the ball. So I think guys have just kind of really embraced of, the idea of what do we got to do to win, number one. And then number two, what do we got to do to keep developing our roster, continue to stay deep, and understand that ultimately it's about what you do with the reps you get. And we've been pretty good there, to be honest with you, in terms of culture and in terms of buy-in to that. I mean, obviously everybody would like a few more catches, everybody would like a few more carries, but I think ultimately, people are pleased and happy with how they're being used and how they're being coached and how they're being developed. And then Sunday helps, because I think you guys know, even guys that play in the game, we do a developmental scrimmage on Sundays, and that's been helpful. And I think our 3s and 4s, even guys that play, the younger players, I think, are really much more bought into that this year than in the past. I think we've made them more competitive. I think they've been a little bit more fun. It's pretty cool. The veterans all stay out there and they're cheering them on. It's been really good energy. So I think that helps too. It's not perfect, but for the most part, I think it's been good.
Let's go to Mike Gross.
Was there another question? Did I answer your whole?
The second part of my question was: does the competition prevent complacency?
Yeah, I think competition always helps. It helps solve a lot of issues. I think the other thing is, I think when the backup goes in and the starter respects the backup, I think that helps. Same where if you're the backup and you respect the starter, I think those things help. That the locker room usually knows. But yeah, I think that competition in practice, good on good. One of the really cool things that I thought happened on Saturday is after Keandre scored his touchdown on the fade ball, which I thought was a really big-time play, the first guy to meet him coming off the sideline was Kalen King. And Kalen and Keandre's battles at practice are like legendary. And I think that was kind of a really good example and kind of a tip the hat of Kalen seeing Keandre be successful, and Keandre saying, well, you're a big part of that success because of how we go against each other every single day at practice. So I thought that was a really cool moment for our players on the sideline to see, and for those two guys to be so supportive of each other, because it's pretty heated at practice sometimes.
Let's go to Mike Gross and then Ben Jones. You're on deck.
James, how are you?
Hey, Mike, black or sweetener and cream?
Sweetener and cream. Yeah, I'm not a coffee purist. I'm a coffee guy, but not a purist.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I wish I was with you.
Caramel and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going that far, but yeah, but basically an ice cream sundae, as much artificial sweetener and cream as possible. Hunter is a big coffee drinker too, and he used to make fun of me because it was like, he's like, is that really coffee or is it just cream?
Yeah, I have no qualms.
You're comfortable with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, me too.
Last week, the Ohio State AD testified to Congress that it has become common for recruits to ask for money in exchange for visiting your campus, and the number he gave was $5,000. So the question is, have you had to deal with that? And if so, how have you dealt with it? And if you haven't had to deal with it, how do you think you would deal with it if it came up?
As you could probably imagine, it's kind of like we had the discussion maybe it was a year ago, when something came out from that school as well, and they talked about a number, and you guys wanted to know if my number was similar, and I said, well, why would my number not be similar? People seem shocked by that. Yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, the schools that you're mentioning, we're all dealing with the same challenges and issues. We all are. So yeah, sometimes I think things are said publicly that maybe you guys weren't aware of before. But yeah, we're all dealing with the same challenges and issues because most of us are all recruiting the same guys. And that's about as far as I'll get into that, and then talk about Northwestern.
Let's go to Ben Jones and then Johnny McGonigal.
Hey, James, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a black coffee guy.
You are. You beat me to the punch. You just said I'm gonna steal his thunder.
Yeah, I could tell we were having a Thanksgiving. What's your favorite?
Yeah.
What's your favorite applesauce thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't. I would miss my morning meetings if I had that much artificial sweetener.
Always black coffee?
For the most part. I drink coffee enough that I like it, but not so much that I need it. So.
Yeah, I don't need it. I don't drink it on vacation. We don't have a coffee maker at the house. So it's only at work.
Fair enough. Well, good news is you don't spend a lot of time at work.
Yeah, fair. Fair.
So,
did you always drink it black, or is that transitioned?
I always drank it black because I didn't know what else to do with it. So I was like, I guess this is how it's going to happen.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So this year you've had 12 touchdown drives that have lasted 4 or more minutes. Last year you had 13 of those. I think we talk about explosive plays and all of the excitement that you're maybe trying to find in the offense. But you have found a lot of success sitting on the ball, tenderizing people, taking what the defense gives you, and you're scoring 30 points or more a game. How much are we missing the plot on this is who you are versus you're just not where you want to be? Obviously, you're not going to turn down explosive plays if they're there, but it also stands to reason that as you reach the halfway point of the season, your offensive identity isn't just going to change overnight. Yeah.
So first of all, I think that's a good question, and I also think it's good information. It's interesting. One of the things that's really cool is, in our team meetings, Mike gets up and talks, and Manny gets up and talks, and Stacy gets up and talks, because when we're talking about football and we're teaching situational football or talking about how we played, one of the things that's been I think been important is Mike talking about how the defense helps our offense, and Manny talks about how the offense helps our defense. So that's been brought up about, like Manny talked about, like they were on the field, and then the next time they got on the field, the score change and the clock change, and how that's been really helpful and impactful. And that goes back to the 86 less reps we've had on the defensive side of the ball at the same point of the schedule last year. So what I would say to your question too, though, is to me, I'm always looking for balance. We're always looking for balance. And right now, I think we have shown the ability to run to win, and we've shown the ability to pass to win. I think we need to be able to show that we can grind it out to win, which we have. But I also think we need to show that we can be explosive to win as well. We've done that at times, but probably not as much as we've grinded it out. But I would also say that also plays a little bit to how people were playing us. If you look at Iowa last week, they were playing soft on the perimeter and were not going to give up the big play. They were not going to let us throw it over their head. You can even go back and watch a tape. A lot of times if people are playing soft on the edge, you may not feel like you can run by them, but you may be able to run a double move, a stutter, to get them to bite from off coverage and then be able to run by. We tried to run a stutter, we weren't able to run by them either. They didn't bite. So I think some of it is how people are defending us in terms of trying to stop our two running backs by overloading the box, but then also playing soft, either like Illinois with a safety at 25 yards deep in the middle of the field in their way of stopping the explosive play, or with soft corners. So for me, back to the initial statement I said about balance, we got to be able to show that we can grind it out or be explosive, run the ball to win, pass the ball to win, and we need to continue to grow and develop in the explosive play area. I will tell you this. In the locker room at halftime, that was a point that I made to the offense, is do not get bored. And when I say the offense, the offensive coaches, do not get bored with grinding this game out, because it is working for us in a style that is going to allow us to beat this Iowa football team. The 4th and 1 conversions, the sequencing of how we're calling the plays, knowing when we're going to go for it on 4th down, like grind it out. It wasn't like we went at halftime and said we need to be more explosive in this game. No, let's not get bored with how it's going. And what was interesting is if you look at our yards per carry in the first half, and then look our yards per carry in the third quarter, and then look at our yards per carry in the fourth quarter, we just kind of kept chipping away at them, and we didn't average a great yards per carry in the first half, but in the third quarter and the fourth quarter, it was excellent. So part of it is kind of sometimes just the style of how you have to play to win the game and to control the game, if that makes sense.
We'll go to Johnny McGonigal.
Yeah, James. I know you guys are Duncan school, so a suggestion: the cold brew with sweet cold foam with the cold foam on top is really good.
What is the calories in that?
It's only like 80 calories.
Oh, yeah.
As long as you don't get extra creamer or sugar with it, you don't really need it.
Right, but I'm doing this fasting, so it's got to be 0 calories.
So it's 80. It's 80 more than 0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not going to do it. So I'm just going to continue to punish myself with this awful black coffee.
Fair enough.
But that's maybe an afternoon treat. I like it.
There you go.
Nice.
Bo Prabula has gotten in, quite a bit so far.
Cold brew with sweet cream, you said.
It's cold. Yeah, it's cold brew with, I think it's called like the cold foam, the sweet cold foam.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, Bo Prabula has gotten in quite a bit so far this season. I think it's up to like 60, 70 snaps on offense. What have you seen out of him and how he's handled himself when he's getting in to games?
Yeah, so we've been very intentional, very much like we were last year with Drew in making sure we're going to get Bo these reps. Also, I don't know if you've noticed, sometimes we're putting him in a series before we've really made a change, allowing him to be in with the majority of the ones still, because we think that's important. And then after that series, then make some more changes. We'd like to get him involved more in a situation where he can actually run our offense, because I think right now he's being used primarily as a runner, but we feel like we can run the whole offense with him. But a lot of that is because of its borderline 4-minute offense as well, and it's something that he also does well. So kind of allows us to do both, gain a hat in the run game, 4-minute, and play to one of his strengths. But I do think it's important that we continue to grow those other elements. He's getting it in practice a lot, obviously, but I think it's been really good. But we want to continue to develop that. And then there's obviously a place for getting him in, situationally throughout the game as well. Maybe in the red zone, or maybe in third down, or maybe as a change up. We had a play we were going to run yesterday, and it was during a timeout, and I kind of vetoed it at the last minute. But he's got a bigger package than what you've seen to this point. But I've been pleased with him. He's another guy that prepares really well, kind of emotionally steady Eddie. Doing a really good job of protecting the ball. We got to continue to do that. But we're pleased with him. And I know, talking to our defensive coaches and talking to some of our analysts, we feel like he's a weapon that defensive coordinators and head coaches are spending time on. Okay, yeah, he's just being used right now at the end of the game, but you've seen enough of him that everybody knows at some point you're going to have to be prepared for him during regular time. So I think it's been good, and he's been good.
All right, for those in the room that have a question, please raise your hand. We'll bring a mic to you. We'll start with Mark.
Hey, James, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great. With respect to special teams,
Nope.
It skipped a generation with me. My mom drank coffee. My daughter drinks coffee. I don't drink coffee.
At all?
Not at all.
Never have?
Nope.
Impressive. Do you drink tea?
If I'm not feeling well, maybe. But no, I'm not like
Red Bull?
I'm not like a hot beverage person.
Red Bull?
No comment on what I drink. Yeah, no comment on.
Yeah, love that.
In all seriousness, you had a lot of question marks with your special teams coming into the season. Through 4 games, how would you assess the overall performance of those groups? Thanks.
Yeah, I think, like we've talked about in a lot of other areas, I think there's been flashes of really good things. I think our units are playing well and are playing fast and are playing aggressive and hard. I think we just need to be a little bit more consistent at the specialist positions in terms of our field goal percentage. I also would say we have gone for it on 4th down as a philosophy coming into the season that could have skewed those numbers with some chip shot field goals that would have helped. Punting, I think you really have to talk about drive start with that, because although we're not, again, crushing the ball, it's difficult for people to get returns on us. I think our kickoffs that's been something I think has been pretty consistent in terms of our philosophy of kicking it out and covering down. So I think good, but we need to take the next step from a consistency standpoint.
In the back, Andrew.
Hey, Coach. I'm like you, cream, sugar, all the nonsense.
Say it again.
I'm like you, cream and sugar, all the nonsense. It's the only way to drink it. Cold brew also better. My question's about turnovers.
Nice.
I know you track shoulda, coulda been turnovers as much as you do real turnovers. When you look back through your numbers,
And not just track them, we show it in the team meeting as well.
when you look back through at 0 turnovers through 4 games, is it as impressive when you look at the shoulda, coulda as it is to us when we see the actuals?
Yeah, I think so. I guess for me, I think what happens a lot of times because it's so exciting is I think people spend a lot of time on the turnovers, but just as exciting to me is the lack of turnovers and how we're respecting the football and essentially the program by doing that. So we got to continue to preach that. We got to continue to not get bored with that, with those fundamentals and that period that we do every single day. But I think it's been really good. And I think rather than just brushing over the times where we got away with a poor decision or we got away with a lack of ball security, that's where I think you have problems if after wins you don't address the problems. So same as turnovers. Just because we didn't turn it over doesn't mean there wasn't some coaching and teaching that needs to come from it. So that's how we've been addressing it, and so far so good, but we need to keep it up.
Over here, Mike.
Does this stat make sense, or maybe
Mike.
you can explain it?
There's a theme going on here.
Peppermint tea.
Peppermint tea. So I need more. I don't understand that. Like,
It's medicinal.
okay.
I think I'm the oldest one here.
Is there sweetener with it or just the peppermint tea?
Just the tea.
Is that a little bit, because I struggle with, is that a little bit like the seltzer? What I mean by that is like you got the seltzer that's like it's berry seltzer or whatever seltzer, and it's got a really strong smell. So you get excited that it's going to taste like that, but then it doesn't. So is the peppermint more like the smell, or does it have a strong peppermint taste?
Well, it's peppermint, so it tastes like peppermint.
Right, but like I associate peppermint with the sugar that usually comes with
No,
peppermint.
it still smells like peppermint, but it's good for the system.
Yeah, I know it smells like peppermint. What I'm saying is I associate the sweetener with peppermint. There's no sweetener.
No, it's not. Sweet.
Okay, sorry.
No, but I'm a stat guy, and you are, especially when they're good stats. Drew's 4.5 per attempt, combined with Nick's down over 5 yards per rushing attempt in the first 4 games compared to last year. What does that tell us or tell you?
So a couple things. I'm not a good stat guy. I'm a guy that I think the stats that are in the extremes are what you have to be aware and concerned of. So the really good stats, they tell a story. The really bad stats, they tell a story. So for me, with what you're talking about, I mean, the terms of yards per carry, I don't know if I could have addressed that more. I've been asked that question like 1,000.
You covered that about the scheme. I think that answers that.
Right, but you just asked it.
Yeah, well, I'm asking you the two things together. What do they tell us?
I guess what I'm saying is I'll get to the other part, but the terms of the yards per carry, we've talked about that, in my opinion, a ton. But in terms of Drew, I think a couple things. I think it goes hand in hand with protecting the football. I think it goes hand in hand with completion percentage. And I think it goes hand in hand that we need to be more explosive. I think it's all those things. We gotta do a better job of being more explosive when the opportunities present themselves. But I also think it tells a story of times where we have called shots and people are playing soft, and he's not holding on to the ball, because it also goes hand in hand with sacks. He's not holding on to the ball waiting for a route to come open. He's working through his progression. He's taking a check down. So that reduces sacks. That keeps us on schedule. that increases completion percentage, and those things equate to wins. Also, it helps with turnovers because a lot of times the turnovers are pressures because the quarterback's holding the ball too long. So I think it's all those things. But at the end of the day, we also have to be more explosive. So it's just a fine line. It's a fine line. We still want to throw for a high completion percentage. We still want to make sure we're protecting the football. We still want to reduce the sacks because we don't want to take negative yardage plays that get us off schedule. But when the opportunities come for a big play, we got to hit it. The last thing I'll say on it is also the ability to get the ball to people on the perimeter with a cushion, and then our ability to make people miss, because the explosive plays always don't have to be the ball that's spiraling in the air for 40 yards. It can be a 5-yard completion or a 12-yard completion where you make somebody miss and go 80. Very different than your first part of your question with a running back, where a running back usually is going to have to break multiple tackles or make multiple people miss to get that explosive play. So we need to be a little bit better with our yak as well.
Over here on the left, Jared.
Hey, Coach Franklin.
Hey, Jared.
I'm a big tea guy, by the way. No coffee.
I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna hold on that. You're a tea guy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Lots of sugar too.
Love it.
Earlier, you said that as a team, you guys need to refine collective and individual preparation. Going into game day this week, can you expand a little bit more on what that means?
Yeah, so it's our team's process of Sunday through Friday, how consistently we practice. I think it's also how we approach, the players approach their Monday film sessions on their own. It's how the guys handle taking care of their body and coming in with preventive, maintenance in terms of nutrition, hydration, flexibility. Say you're a guy that's got a history of ankle issues. Are you coming in and doing the preventative, strengthening and flexibility work, whatever it may be, watching film, studying your opponent, going through the game plan. It's all those things that, we do collectively as a team in how we practice and stacking days, Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, leaving the practice field feeling great, Friday, leaving the practice field feeling great, give us the best chance to be successful on Saturday because of consistency, right? I think that's the key, whether it's football or probably any other industry, is who can do it on a consistent basis. And those things are collectively about our team and how we go about our business, and those things are individually. I think, there's examples. I think, why has Dom DeLuca been so successful? I think he's an example of a guy that is super consistent with his approach. I remember back to John Reed, super mature guy who was very consistent. John Sutherland, guy that was super consistent with his approach. And I think, those guys leave a legacy, right? John Reed learned from somebody. Sutherland maybe learned from John Reed. And our guys now learn from Sutherland, and so on and so forth, to kind of pass it down. I think Drew learned from Sean, and so on and so forth. So that individual and collective process of preparation, I think has been good, but we got to continue building on it. We got to sustain it. It's one thing to do it for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Can you do it, week after week, day after day for the entire season? When you play well and when you don't play well, do you still put in the same level of approach? And actually, do you get better each week? Are you, self-reflective? Are you self-aware, where you kind of look at yourself and say, okay, this is what I did last week, and maybe I wasn't as good in this area. What am I going to do differently this week? we talk a lot this year about being intentional. Are you intentional about your plan and areas where you can improve and where we can improve?
Audrey.
James, oh, sorry about that. Both, correct answer, tea and coffee, no sweeteners. I thought Mike was maybe mocking me with the peppermint thing because that's my deal. But wanted to ask about Mike Yursich.
So is there certain days or certain times of the day that make
Coffee
you drink?
first thing in the morning. Usually Wednesday nights I have tea ahead of practice 'cause it's a late night for me.
Interesting.
Yeah. But about Mike Yursich, you mentioned a couple times the not getting bored part. What have you learned about Mike through these first 4 games? Because I'm imagining as an OC that's got to be challenging when you're in a game like that and kind of staying the course.
Well, first of all, I think Mike has done a great job. I think he's really built a culture in the offensive staff room where he's getting really good thoughts and feedback from the entire staff. There's good discussions. There's conflict, which I think is always good in terms of if the coordinator brings something up, people can push back. If the assistants can bring something up, the coordinator can push back. It's not just a bunch of yes men in the room, which I think is also important. And I think Mike's a guy that both him and Manny talked about in the offseason about what they want their offense and defenses to be is winning offense and defenses. And I think both would probably admit that maybe earlier in their careers they were focused on maybe leading the country in yards or points or whatever it may be, and that's really ego, not necessarily what's in the team's best interest. When those two things can go hand in hand, that's fine, but that's as a byproduct of doing what you have to do to win. And I think that was a really strong message from both of our coordinators on the retreat before the season started, which I thought was excellent. And I think, on game day, I think that's kind of my job is to help with that, like to remind on the headset from time to time, hey Manny, they're probably in 4-down territory right now. And I think a lot of times Manny knows that, but sometimes it's a good reminder to hear it. For Mike, hey, they haven't stopped us yet in the run game. Stick with it. Don't get away with it. Don't get away from it. Or, hey, we're getting a little bit conservative. They're sitting on our routes. When next chance you get, let's take a shot. Those types of things. But I think Mike and Manny have been great. I think they've been really good complementary pieces of each other on game day, but I also think they've been very good complementary pieces of each other with our team and in front of our team, which is really important. And I think that went all the way back to training camp. Those guys working together when we'd go good on good periods against each other, and it's not always like that. I've been some places where it can be divisive. So I think that's been really important culturally, the respect that those two guys have for each other and them putting the team first in front of any ego type things that I think can hurt a lot of football teams and organizations in general.
Time for one more. Bob.
James, how you doing?
Good, Bob. How are you?
No coffee, no tea, but I'm a big caffeine guy. So you could write this down. Celsius energy drink. It's got a lot of good stuff in it, not a lot of calories. I would recommend that.
I didn't write it down because I'm all over it.
Okay. Yeah. You know about it?
Yeah, my wife started.
Yeah.
We like the carbonated one. We don't like the
Yes,
tea-based
correct.
one for whatever reason.
Yep. It's a good way to start the day.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask you just two quick ones on the 4th down sneak and the conversion rate you've been able to have. Even though it's a small gain, I think it's had a dramatic impact for you guys. And it looks like you've tweaked your sneak with your 240-pound quarterback. And also, how has it kind of enhanced Tyler Warren's value to this team because of his role on the play, but also, he's a threat as a catcher, a blocker, and he can also run the ball. He's done it in the past. Just it seems like that fourth down success, if you can continue to do that, will really impact the team going forward.
Yeah, I think it has been good for us. It really has. And I think a big part of it is the rule change. You know, I'm going to be interested to see if the rule stays the way it is. You know, I remember all the way back, I think when they changed the rule, or maybe they didn't, I'm trying to remember correctly, but with the USC play. So for a while you couldn't do it. Then they changed it and said you could. So it's going to be interesting if this one stays. But yeah, I think it has been. I think it has been good. I think your point of a 240-pound quarterback helps. You know, being 6'5" helps. Our offensive line and tight ends help. You know, and then Tyler, you know, the way we've used him. But obviously there's going to be different ways and different things we do as well. You're not going to run it the same way every single week, and then you're going to have a complement off it too to keep people honest. So I think it's been really good for us. You know, and we'll continue to invest in it, but we got to have the complements off of it as well to keep people honest.
Thank you very much, Coach.
Thanks, guys.